They're on pace to be the worst team in MLB history. They're pacing for a negative 514 run differential. That'd be the worst run differential in history by 164 runs. Since September 22nd, 2024, the Rockies have one more win than the Broncos. The Eagles have more wins since Thanksgiving than the Rockies. And as of June 2nd, there have been more tornadoes in Denver than Rockies wins. Carlos Zambrano's career OPS is the same as the entire Rockies team. He was a pitcher, meaning if the Rockies replaced their entire lineup with 9 pitchers, they'd have a better offense this year. If the season ended today, they'd have the worst starting ERA in baseball history and the worst offense in baseball history, according to WRC+. The owner responds to angry fans' emails. The analytics department was once asked to act as the team's equipment managers, and they paid their best player to play for another team. But believe it or not, it wasn't that long ago that the Rockies were actually one of the most promising teams in the league. In 2018, the Rockies were better than the Dodgers. They opened the season with an 18% chance to make the playoffs. By June 27th, they only had a 3% chance to make the playoffs. With a week left to play, had a 27% chance to make the playoffs. Then they won 9 out of 10 playoffs.
They made it as a wild card.
This was the 7th best offense in baseball. They had 3 all-star hitters. 2 of them finished top 8 in MVP voting. They had 2 silver sluggers. They also had a great pitching staff. There was a guy named Kyle Freeland, who's still on the team today. He was coming off being 4th in Rookie of the Year voting, had a 7.6 WAR, was the 4th best pitcher in MLB, and had a 2.85 ERA, 24 years old. This guy finished 4th in Cy Young voting. They also had Jermaine Marquez. He finished 5th in Rookie of the Year voting the year before. In 2018, German Marquez was the 7th best pitcher in the NL by WAR, struck out 10 per game, had a 3.77 ERA in Coors, all right? 7th best pitching staff in the league. Every single one of their pitchers was under 30. Their best 2 were under 25. 3 of the 5 of them are still on the team. They followed that up by signing Nolan Arenado. They lock up their superstar, okay? Nolan Arenado, 8-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glover, 5-time Silver Slugger, finished top 6 in MVP voting 4 seasons in a row, and he signed the 2nd biggest contract in MLB history by AAV right after that season, all right? That season, they end up finishing 4th. So that was a very disappointing 2019. All right, they go into 2020, make 0 free agent signings. They start the season 11-3, then lose 31 of the next 45 games. They finish 17 games out of first place in 2020, a shortened season. So they come back in 2021. Things get even worse. After making Nolan Arenado the 2nd highest paid player ever just 2 years ago, the Rockies trade him. They trade him to the Cardinals. Not only do they trade him to the Cardinals, they pay the Cardinals. The Rockies are now paying their best player to play for another team.
Paid the Cardinals $50 million to take a very good player from them, and they got nothing in return.
CBS gives this trade a F immediately when it happens. The Athletic gives them a D on this trade, says it was a huge mistake and a horrible return. The Denver Gazette, they say, quote, lopsided Rockies_Cardinals trade, leave one man Arenado thrilled. Why would you pay for your best player to play on another team? And this is the reason wwhy Arenado was pissed, all right? Because in 2018, when they had a 1-game lead behind the Dodgers in the playoffs, they added 1 player at the deadline. Sang-Won Oh, a 35-year-old reliever. Not exactly helping your team much when that's the only thing you're doing at the deadline. So after that amazing 2018, they didn't re-sign one of their best players, DJ LeMahieu. Arenado and reportedly others on the team thought that the Rockies were not doing enough to win. He sees where the organization's going. He says, I want out. So Arenado, after getting signed for his entire life, requests a trade. Arenado had a opt-out after 2022. So the Rockies know he's unhappy, knowing that he's probably going to opt out next year no matter what. They say, instead of just letting him walk for nothing, let's make a trade and get something in return. Guess who the Rockies got back in this trade? Austin Gomber, Elehuris Montero, Tony Losi, Mateo Gil, and Jake Summers. One of them is still in the organization. That's Austin Gomber. And since being on the team, he's the 4th worst pitcher in baseball. One of the worst trades in baseball history. So their GM at the time, he was there for 6 seasons. He spent $300 million and signed 19 free agents. These 19 players combined for negative 3-4 WAR. So $300 million for players who ended up being worse than minor leaguers. How is that possible? You're thinking this got to be the worst GM in baseball history, right? A lot of people, however, do defend this guy because they'll just blame the owner. So this guy, Dick Monfort, who owns the Rockies, is known for being extremely hands-on. Also pretty weird. Okay, this guy's worth $700 million and literally responds to emails from fans. One fan who was upset that they were playing bad criticized him and the team. He responded by saying, quote, "Then don't come." Told another angry fan, quote, "Maybe it's time for you to find a new home." When a fan asked him if he would try to sign Soto, he said, quote, "He's publicly said he wants to play baseball on the East Coast." And it has nothing to do with the fact that Dick Monfort's worth $700 million himself, and Soto just got paid $760. So the Rockies trade Arenado. They let their second best player leave, Trevor Story, in free agency. DJ LeMahieu is gone. They still have Charlie Blackmon on the team, but he's 34. And he was the least productive of the four. Not to mention the two starters who dominated in 2018. What happened to them? They are terrible now. Kyle Freeland, since 2019, has a 5.06 ERA, fourth worst ERA in baseball. They signed this guy to a 5-year, $64.5 million contract in 2022. German Marquez, same thing. Amazing season in 2018. Since 2018, seventh worst ERA in baseball. Anthony Senzatella, he has the worst ERA in baseball. And that's another big issue because you can't put that blame on those guys completely. All right, these guys are pitching in the worst stadium to pitch in baseball history. The altitude is so crazy. The balls fly out there, right? Everyone knows it. No free agent wants to pitch there for this reason. Since they opened in 1999, there has never been a season where Coors isn't the easiest stadium to hit in. Kyle Freeland says that the environment makes you sore. Jeff Hoffman has a career 7.3 ERA at Coors Field and has a 3.66 everywhere else. In 2012, Jeremy Guthrie had a 9.5 ERA at home and a 3.67 ERA at the road. So they can't sign big free agent pitchers because none of them want to go there. They have signed some in the past. Daryl Kyle, Mike Hampton, Danny Neagle. Then they got to Colorado and they all sucked. Every pitcher they have to produce through the farm system. And all the money they spend on free agents pretty much have to be offensive players. And in 2022, they did that. They spent $182 million on Chris Bryant. They spent even more. They spent more on Jose Iglesias, Alex Colomé, Chad Kuhl for about $200 million, and they combined for negative 2.9 WAR. The next year, they signed Jurickson Profar for $7.75 million, then release him. He leaves and goes to San Diego and immediately is a beast. Pierce Johnson, they signed him for $5 million. He had a 6 ERA in Colorado. Gets traded, goes to the Braves. Great for the Braves. That year, there's a famous fight with the Rockies and Bryce Harper, where in the middle of the fight, Bryce Harper just calls them out, quote, "a loser fucking organization." So over a 2-year stretch, these guys they signed, Bryant, Profar, Pierce Johnson, they signed these guys for $213 million in contract combined. They combined for negative 2.9 WAR. But let's combine that with the 6 years prior. The Rockies spent $513 million in free agents, and those free agents produced negative 8.9 WAR. $500 million plus. How is that even possible? In 2020, the Rockies used full-time front office staff as clubhouse attendants rather than bringing back furloughed employees. So there's reports that, unsurprisingly, most of these employees were unhappy about the situation they were put in by Dick Monfort. The next year, the Rockies lose 4 of the 6 members of research and development. This means that their analytic department after 2021 or in 2021 was 2 people. The Rockies have front office staff washing jerseys. They have 2 people in the analytics department, and that's probably how you end up spending $500 million on negative 8.9 WAR. And that's how you become the worst team in baseball. In 2023 and 2024, they had the worst record in the NL both years, and in 2025, it's gotten even fucking worse. They come into this season, they had a 0.1% chance to make the playoffs this season. They signed 5 more players this season. All 5 of these players they signed this offseason, negative WAR. They were projected to lose 99 games. Right now, it's even worse. They're projected to lose 137 games. On May 27th, they lost their 21st consecutive series to set an MLB record. And then they got swept their next series. So they lost 22 series in a row. They go to Miami. First game in Miami, the attendance was 5,894 people. This is the lowest attended game of this season. This game had less people at the stadium than the regional game between Wake Forest and Tennessee. And that's where they shine when no one's watching, because they won the first one, they won the second one, and hey, they're out of the doghouse. The Colorado Rockies are back. The Colorado Rockies won 2 in a row. They're going for a sweep today, and they're still on pace to be the worst team in baseball history.